guys, I'm Natasha.
I'm Finn.
And I'm Danny, and we're here with Budget Banter, episode 6. We're here with Will Hendricks. Will, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a senior here at LHS. I played football. I do IPS, and that's about
How
it.
long have you played football for?
3 years, so started my sophomore year.
Can you tell us about why you started playing?
So I hit a big growth spurt my sophomore year. I was about 6 foot tall my freshman year, and I got to 6'2", 265 pounds in about a year. So I felt like a lot of the coaches were watching me, so I was like, I probably have to do this. So peer pressured into it.
Do you felt like you immediately fell in love with football, or was it kind of gradual?
Well, so I always loved football. I just didn't know how much I loved playing it. Because, I grew up watching it with my dad. But playing it was the part that I had to kind of fall in love with. But, pretty instantly it was this is what I want to do. So, yeah.
How did you feel your knowledge of football, from you said your relationship with your dad translated into you playing?
I think it was tough at first because when you watch football, you watch the flashy receivers and quarterbacks in those positions. So it gets tough to translate it into playing a kind of obscure position like offensive line. So I wouldn't say that helped a ton, but I understood the mindset that you needed to play with it because of watching it.
What was kind of your first year playing football for Lawrence High like? Kind of not really knowing how it worked or how things worked. Who kind of helped you, and how did that process go?
Yeah, so it was definitely weird. There was the situation with Thy, who will not be named, to where that position became open for me to start as a sophomore. But it was definitely nerve-wracking at first because you felt like you were taking opportunities away from seniors because you're the youngest one starting. So that was definitely weird at first. But I think that senior class took me in so fast. So I think I owe a lot of where I am now and how I've progressed to them. Noah Smith, Truman Julesgaard, Asen, a ton of those guys. Of course, I'm missing some, but those guys took me in quick, so that was huge.
How do you feel the offensive line benefits from having a healthy culture?
I think it's everything because there's very few. In fact, it's the only one with that many players playing that one group. Mm-hmm. So you'll have 3 receivers on the field, maybe. You have 1 quarterback. You have 3 defensive linemen, maybe. So when you have a group that's that big playing, you have to have a good culture, or else it just doesn't work. Because if one is off, it's done. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's incredibly important.
How do you guys work to upkeep that?
I think it's just passing it down. I think passing down the torch is huge. Again, Noah Smith. And then my junior year, there wasn't really a senior leader in that group, but I think it's just how can you pass it down to the next class to instill that knowledge in them. Yeah.
Did you feel like this year had any big changes in the roster that kind of changed that negatively or positively?
You mean offensive line or just in general?
Just in general with the offensive scheme, because I know things are pretty different.
No, I think anytime you change a quarterback, it's huge. Mm-hmm. That's the most vital position on the field, no doubt. So I think whenever you change that, it gets different, and especially when it's a younger guy. It's just so important making sure young guys feel confident enough to play. And I think that's a big thing with our roster, whether it be offensive or defensive was young guys. I think there's a lot of young guys that had to step up, sophomores specifically. So I think that's huge is instilling knowledge within them, not only to win games now, but in the future. Yeah. What do we got?
I have another question. I'll go again.
Go for it.
Okay.
What do you got, Phil? Yeah.
I know that pretty notoriously throughout drills, offensive linemen end up getting a lot of stuff that they're not super favorable of. Is there a drill that you absolutely hated that you had to do in practice?
Yeah. Anything with running.
Yeah.
That's horrible. But yeah, I think, shoots. There's a thing called shoots where you have to stay underneath them and you got to go fast, and that sucks.
Yeah.
Staying low is not my forte.
And this summer with the heat that happened, was it difficult to maneuver around that?
Yeah, no, it was really difficult, especially because in your senior season you want to win. I mean, that's all you think about is winning. And so when you're going to practice, you're like, okay, I need this to be the best practice possible. But when it's that hot, you're like, I can't be out here. Like and I mean, you only have so many practices left. Me getting injured, I know that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So when it feels like it's been ruined by the heat, it sucks for sure. So,
you mentioned getting injured. Can you tell us a little about that and kind of elaborate on like your injury this past
game?
What happened with that?
So it was the homecoming game. I tore my so I have a isolated full tear in my MCL. So that's kind of the ligament in the inside of your knee. I fully tore that.
How was that? Can you like walk us through what you were thinking in the moment or what kind of happened?
Yeah, I knew. I remember on the field. My vision was very foggy at that point. Of course, you don't want to ever remember that moment, but I remember feeling the pop. I mean, it's a very. I had a similar injury last year where I partially tore it, but it just stretched. I felt a burn really bad then. And then this year, there was no burn. It was just a snap. I mean, I knew. I remember Coach Bowen coming over and looking. I said, it's torn. I looked at him and said, it's torn. It's just so many things went through your mind, especially with me being a guy that's going to play in college. It was like, how is this going to affect the future? Because that's what you're thinking about immediately. And then from there, it's I can't play with my brothers, like the people that I really, really want to play with, because there's nothing like high school football. There's just not. Especially with how college football is now with the transfer portal and all that type of stuff. You just can't build relationships like you can in high school. Because, I mean, you grew up with these guys. I played football with these guys not only for 3 years, but I've known them for 12. So, yeah.
And you mentioned your brothers, but I do know that you have a brother that plays
I do.
On the same team as you.
Yes. Yep.
And was that hard for you?
That was the hardest part.
To get injured?
Yeah, that was definitely the hardest part, and that was when he finally got the starting job. I remember being at the doctor's office with my mom and telling her that was it. That was the reason I was so devastated. I don't know if there will ever be another opportunity to play with my brother, and so that felt like it. So it was that was definitely the hardest part.
And not to like totally switch topics or anything, but you mentioned your mom.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about where your parents were at during this situation?
During my injury?
Yes.
We have, and again, we're going on kind of a tangent here, but my family specifically has dealt with a lot of injuries in sports and just everything. My brother broke his neck, broke his collarbone this year, early in the year. So to say we were used to it is not like it's not great to say, but we were. But I think they knew it was when it's your senior year, it's different. So they were just as supportive as can be, just trying to let me focus on what I can do now and what I can do in the future. So they were incredible through it all. Yeah.
Do you feel like there was kind of like an understanding or like notion that you had towards injuries because of growing up with your family, or was it just kind of new? Another thing I know I've heard offensive linemen talk about is like that's definitely a fear on the field with like leg injuries especially. Yeah,
and not only are you susceptible to it, but I'll be honest here, we're bigger guys. Yeah. I mean, you're a larger human. And so putting pressure on your knees is already not great. And the way you're moving, the way you're supposed to move fast, and the way you're supposed to move quick, as a big person, that's not easy. And so your knees take most of the brute force. So when you do get an injury like that, you always worry, like, am I going to come back and be 100%? Am I ever going to be as good as I was? Or can I even get better? Yeah. So that's always a worry. But again, they told me, and I had so much help. It wasn't just them. My trainer and other stuff is like, you can. This is just it's a detour, but yeah.
So what did that like recovery process look for you, mentally and physically?
Mentally, it was tough. I mean, it was damn near impossible, because that was I always said it was the timing was the worst part. It was 6 weeks out from the end of the season, and it was an 8-week injury. So it's just the timing lined up perfectly. And so that sucked in watching your team lose games and lose the last game of the year and win games. I mean, that was hard. You know what I mean? You feel, especially the Free State game, you feel like that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and you couldn't be a part of it because of this circumstance. So that was tough mentally, but physically it was just, I mean, how can I do this as fast as possible? And I think luckily I had people slowing me down and doing PT, but I mean, it was nothing crazy.
What was it like, though, still being a part of the team after the injury? Because I know you were still very much there, very much involved, and a very vocal leader on the sidelines. From like my student section perspective, we all noticed that. But what was that like for you, and how did you kind of that?
I wanted, again, what we talked about earlier in this talk is how can you instill the precedent of what it means to play at Lawrence High and what it means to play for this team. And so that is something you can do whether you have a knee or not. So that was something that I took to heart, is how can I help them in any way possible? How can I help the team in any way possible? But yeah, it was tough having to watch people do what you want to do, but knowing that, again, those are your brothers and you want them to succeed, that helped. Yeah.
Totally. That's a really good way to like think about it all.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to look at it, and it's tough, but if you can, it helps a lot.
I know like a lot of people said that they, like, you know, like the players, like you went to the practices and the players there like talked about like how much of a leader you are for them. And I'm gonna put you on the spot here, but why do you think that is?
What do you mean?
Like, what do you think? Like, what do you try to do that do you think is like a leadership skill?
I think it's having fun. I really do. I think it's you can get so tied up in wanting to be the best, wanting to win, and you lose sight of what it really means. And in playing for 3 years, it helps, because I've played in tough games, I've played in very competitive ones, but the most fun that you can have is when you just don't care. I mean, truly. So when you're out there at practice and you're trying to help them and want to see them succeed. And I think at the end of the day, high school football is how can you get to college? I mean, that's it. So I think if I can help anybody get to college in any way possible, I mean, that's what I'll do. So that's why.
Transitioning into college.
Yep.
Where did that process start for you? Like, when did you start getting attention, and like where did you start giving attention for where you wanted to go?
Yeah, so my junior year, I started to realize I was pretty damn good at this. Like, I was like, okay, I can see myself playing in college. So there's a date, I'm trying to remember the date. There's a date where colleges can start texting you, they can start recruiting you, they can DM you on Twitter. And I remember thinking, I'm going to wake up in the morning, there's going to be 10 texts on here, I'm going to get so many looks, and none. I mean, it's tough. So and eventually it picked up, of course, but I think it just starts in putting yourself out there. I mean, it's especially on Twitter, you got to follow everybody, you got to text everybody. I mean, it's you just got to put yourself out there, hope you get seen, and luckily for me, I was, and so yeah.
An important part of the process is always selling yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what was kind of like some of the schools that were kind of interested in you, and you kind of pursued those schools a little bit during your recruiting process?
So I had a few offers. I had quite a few D2, a couple NAIA, so Fort Hays State, Central Missouri, just a bunch of D2s around Kansas and Missouri, and then my one Division I offer was Drake. But there was a few others, Valparaiso, but yeah, it was basically just those schools.
What drew you most to Drake?
I think education. It sounds nerdy, but when you're, especially after getting an injury, you start thinking, what am I going to do if this doesn't pan out? I mean, how long can I truly, realistically play football and make money doing it? So when I think about it in playing football, is how can I go to school, play football, which I love doing, but also get a good degree? So that was a huge part of it. Yeah.
What were you planning, or are you planning on focusing on academically?
So I think I'm going to go into data analytics, see if I can do some analytics within sports. But my dream is being a coach. So I think if I can do that, that's the end goal. Yeah.
Before we kind of wrap things up, I kind of wanted to circle back to like your like leadership in high school, and I wanted to ask about I know you're involved in IPS, and we were both in the class together
Yep.
last year. And
Yeah.
that was a really cool experience for me, and I know it probably was for you too. But how has that helped with your leadership on the football field and just within the school?
Yeah, everything. I mean, it truly is everything. When there's a notion about football players being kind of mean and scary and unapproachable, can it be realistic? Absolutely. But I think what I wanted to do is try to shed a light on the fact that not all of us are that way, and not everybody is that way, whether you're big, whether you're a football player, whether you're this, that, athlete, whatever. And yeah, I mean, that class has been incredible. Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about it and what it's done for me and the people around me, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Question that slipped my mind.
Well, we can kind of.
Hold on.
Is it Fortnite related?
No. I could Brindle.
Yeah.
So,
Sweet.
I'm trying to think. I think we've hit
I just
home on a
wanted
lot of important.
So
Yeah.
I know, based on prior knowledge,
Yep.
perhaps through my mother, that your family has a pretty deep connection to like the law and other like academic things like that.
Uh-huh.
Did that play at all in Drake? Because I know it's a pretty reputable school with history and law.
Yeah, no, there was a part of me that wanted to do stuff with law, but I want to do, and not saying my mom doesn't love what she does, but she talks all the time where it's like, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have gone down that path. And so I think with doing football, it's like I could have gone to these other schools, but I'm chasing what I really want to do.
Yeah.
Like what I really love doing and what I really want to do. And it's a tough business. Can you make a lot of money? Yeah. I mean, Andy Reid's getting paid $20 million a year to coach the Chiefs, but it's there's also people getting paid $12,000 a year to clean his laundry. Yeah. So I mean, it's so a process. Yeah. So I think I just want to do what I love and stay in that realm. So I do think they played a role in the education focal point, like choosing a school, which is understandable, but not really in what they want me to do and how they want me to go about it. Yeah.
So kind of wrapping things up. This is at least my final thought. I don't know if you guys have final thoughts too, but so what are you kind of looking forward to going into? I know we're about to go into winter break.
Yeah. Going
into this next semester, like your final semester of high school.
Yeah.
And then going into the summer and then college. What are you really looking forward to, kind of just for your future in general?
Yeah. I want to be the best I can next year. I think when you come back from an injury and you get an injury and you don't get to play, there starts to be this thing where it's like, am I that good? Like, kind of prove it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's something that I want to do. Is be the best player I can be, the best athlete I can be next year. But with school, it's just enjoy. You know what I mean? Again, these are the people you've been around for 4 years. Enjoy that. Enjoy the time with my brother while he's still with me at school. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, this is kind of it. Yeah.
I have another thought, but do you have another?
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
We talked about how scary it was in the very beginning.
Yeah.
You starting as a sophomore.
Yes.
And I know there's a lot of people who are probably like very, very scared to like join a sports team or like do any kind of like almost like leadership role.
Yep.
And what would you tell them from someone who's like graduated from that phase, is playing in a D1 school? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
A couple things. One, you never know. I mean, I didn't know, and I was about as bad a football player you could be as when I started. So you never know where you'll end up. And another thing is, I truly do believe we have the best coaches, regardless of sport, in Kansas, let alone the country. I think we have incredible leadership in coaching. Just to name, Brad Stoll is one of the best coaches, regardless of sport, in America. I think Coach Bowen wins wherever he goes. Our volleyball, Scarborough, incredible. Again, I could just keep going. Our track coaches, I went out for a year. So to those people, I think I'd say there's leadership anywhere, and there's really good people everywhere. So put yourself out there. You never know.
Has there been any like coaching staff outside of school, or like coaches or anyone who's kind of fostered that for you?
Yeah. So I think where you're hitting at this is Barra. Kelly Barra is a trainer who teaches at Free State but trains over at his gym. Ubuntu. It's been the best. He's the best role model. When I committed to Drake, I had a note for everybody that I wrote myself, and nobody saw it but me until I released it. And a good portion of it, if not half of it, is about him. He truly is the best mentor, role model, leader, just person. So if there's anything I can recommend in this whole thing, it's go see Kelly Barra if you want to be an incredible athlete. Yeah.
That'll be the next episode is Danny, Natasha, and Finn go and train for like a decathlon.
There you go. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, if you can somehow get a 5-minute interview with Kelly Barra, you would not regret it. That would be an awesome interview.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys.
I
Yeah.
have one last question.
Yes.
Why are you so bad at Fortnite?
This is a horrible question. Let's look at the stats, and we'll see what happened last night when we were taking notes for journalism.
This
You
is
suck
real.
at
This is
Fortnite.
real journalism.
This is real.
I will say the one time I played Fortnite with Will Hendricks, we had a good time.
Yeah.
And he was all right.
He's a boss.
That's all I do.
He's a
It's
boss.
about having fun.
He
Yeah, I may
leads.
not win, but I have an awesome time doing it, and everybody around me has an awesome
Sorry,
time.
guys.
We're not
I'm
going
sorry
to be
for
able to
not
settle
being
this
a-
debate right now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been Budget Banter episode 6. Signing off. Thank you guys.